This podcast contains graphic descriptions of violence and disturbing content related to real-life events, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
All right, so buckle up, because today we're going deep on a story that'll really make you think about justice. You know, like what it actually means. It's got it all: wrongful accusations, a bit of Hollywood luck, and it's a scary look at how fast life can change.
Yeah, the case we're looking at today really makes you wonder about that whole innocent until proven guilty thing. Does it actually hold up?
Right, and the guy at the center of it all is Juan Catalan, a regular guy living in LA, and suddenly, bam, he's accused of murder and facing, the death penalty.
To being in the wrong place at the wrong time, but times 1,000.
Totally. And get this, Curb Your Enthusiasm, that TV show actually ends up being super important in proving his innocence. It's a wild story. We've got articles from the LA Times, LA Mag, and the Daily News to help us put it all together, so let's jump in.
I'm Darius.
I'm Margot.
Welcome to Murderology. The sources you sent are really interesting. They show how important it is to, get the facts straight before jumping to conclusions.
Okay, so let's rewind to before Juan's life got turned upside down. He was a family man, working at his dad's shop, loved the Dodgers. No history of violence, nothing.
Which makes the arrest even more shocking.
Right.
It's like, it could happen to anyone. Doesn't matter who you are or what you do.
So this whole thing starts with a terrible event: the murder of a 16-year-old girl, Martha Puebla. At first, the LAPD is focused on this gang, the Vineland Boys. But here's where it gets crazy. Detectives Martin Pinner and Juan Rodriguez, they used a, kind of messed up tactic. When they were questioning this gang member, Jose Ledesma, they flat out lied, told him that Martha had identified him as the killer.
And that's where we start to see problems with the investigation.
Right.
I mean, police have some leeway when they're questioning someone, sure. But making up evidence, that's a whole other level. It makes you think about what could happen because of that.
And the fallout was huge. Ledesma, he's freaking out, thinks he's going down, so he orders a hit on Martha from jail, to cover his tracks. And get this, the police had a recording of this call, but they never listened to it.
Wow. That's not just missing something. That's a major screw-up. If they miss something that important, what else are they missing? Makes you wonder about the whole investigation,
Totally. So the real killer's out there doing who knows what, and the detectives, they turn their attention to Juan Catalan. And the evidence they have is so weak, it's unbelievable. Another gang member, this guy Francisco Saldivar, claims that Juan drives a white pickup and was in Mexico recently. Both totally false.
And they didn't even check if it was true. It's like they just wanted to get someone, anyone, and they didn't care about the facts.
Exactly. And based on this, nothing, they send in the death squad, which is this, specialized LAPD unit, to arrest Juan in front of his family.
Death Squad, that's a pretty intense name. Just hearing that, it's serious.
Can you imagine living your life and then, boom, you've got a unit called the Death Squad at your door?
Yeah, it shows you how fast things can go bad.
And the nightmare didn't end there. For Juan, LA County Jail was terrifying. Just imagine being surrounded by people who think you killed a kid. The constant threat of violence, it's awful.
Right, and we can't forget that jails and prisons are dangerous places, especially if people think you're weak or vulnerable. And Juan, wrongly accused of something terrible, he was a target.
It's scary to think about. He had this trustee who was trying to find out his name, to tell the shot caller. That's the person who basically runs things inside.
Shot caller. It sounds like something from a movie, but it's real, and they have a lot of power. Their decisions can literally mean life or death.
It's terrifying, and that's not all. Juan saw a brutal beating, got caught up in a full-blown prison riot, and he's innocent. It's just mind-blowing.
It just shows how much damage a wrong conviction can do, not just to the person, but to their family, their community, everyone.
Now, remember that night of the murder? Juan was at a Dodger game with his daughter. His lawyer, Todd Melnick, he's trying everything to prove that, but it's not looking good.
That's what makes this case so interesting, This guy's facing a life sentence, and his only hope is proving he was somewhere else. It shows you how important alibis are.
And here comes the crazy part. Todd's search for proof leads him to, get ready for it, raw footage from Curb Your Enthusiasm, which happened to be filming at Dodger Stadium that night. You can't make this stuff up.
Talk about a long shot. It just goes to show that sometimes the truth comes from the most unexpected places.
They go through hours of footage, and incredibly, they find Juan and his daughter. Huge break, but it's only part of the story. The curb footage shows them there earlier, but they need to prove he wasn't anywhere near the murder when it happened.
Right, so proving you were somewhere is one thing. Proving you weren't somewhere else at a specific time, that's way harder.
Exactly, and that's where cell phone records come in. They can be the key to Juan's freedom.
Cell phone data, it's powerful stuff in these cases. It can put you in a specific place, track your movements. It's like a digital trail.
And in Juan's case, those records are about to reveal the truth.
It's crazy how technology is so tied to our legal system now. It's like having a silent witness that can back you up or prove you wrong.
So we've got curb footage, cell phone records, all pointing to Juan's innocence. But this is only the beginning.
And that's what makes this deep dive so important. We're not just looking at one case, we're seeing how the system works, how it can go wrong, and the power of hope.
And we can't forget about Juan, a guy facing all this pressure, trapped in a web of lies, just trying to get to the truth.
His story is a powerful reminder that even when it seems like everything's lost, you can still fight for what's right.
Okay, so we've got the curb footage right, Juan at the game, and then the phone records show he's nowhere near the murder. Seems like that's it, right? Case closed.
Yeah, you'd think so, but it doesn't end there. The prosecutor, Beth Silverman, she was convinced that Juan was guilty. Didn't matter what the evidence showed.
It's like she was stuck on this idea that Juan killed Martha to, help his brother or something, but there was nothing to support that.
That happens sometimes in these wrongful conviction cases. A prosecutor gets an idea in their head, and it's hard for them to see anything else, even when the evidence says they're wrong.
It just goes to show that anyone can make mistakes, even people in power. And those mistakes, they can really mess things up.
Absolutely. For Juan, those mistakes meant 6 months in jail, living with that constant fear, dealing with the trauma of being accused of something he didn't do.
It's hard to even think about what he went through.
It really makes you think about how important it is to get things right, to make sure the system is fair and accurate.
So thank goodness the judge sees the evidence, sees that Juan is innocent, and throws out all the charges.
It's a victory, but it also makes you wonder how many other people are stuck in jail, innocent, with no lucky breaks like Juan had.
It's a scary thought. But Juan's story isn't over yet. Remember that gang member who lied about Juan in the white pickup? Turns out he was in jail for something else, and he was actually there when Martha was murdered. He saw it all.
Wow, so the guy who lied about Juan could have cleared him from the start.
It's unbelievable, right? But wait, it gets worse. This eyewitness, his name is Juan Ibanez, they deport him back to Mexico before he can give a statement for Juan's lawsuit.
Oh, man. That's a big setback. That statement could have helped explain what really happened, maybe even hold the real killer accountable.
It feels like every time something good happens, something bad happens right after.
The legal system, it's complicated, and it can be frustrating. Even when the truth comes out, getting justice can be really hard.
What about the detectives, the prosecutor? Did anything happen to them?
That's a good question. The city paid Juan some money to settle the lawsuit, but it wasn't a lot. And nobody, got in trouble for what happened to him.
That's tough to hear. They mess up big time, and it seems like they got away with it.
It's a problem with law enforcement and the justice system. It's hard to get them to admit when they're wrong, and even harder to get them to change so it doesn't happen again.
But there's some good news, right? That Netflix documentary, Long Shot, it told Juan's story to the world, and now people are talking about these wrongful convictions.
Documentaries like that are so important. They give a voice to people who have been silenced and force us to see the problems in the system.
And for Juan, it gave him a chance to share what happened, to fight for change. It's pretty inspiring.
It's a story about how strong people can be. Even after something awful happens, they can still make a difference.
Even with the documentary and everything, it must have been hard for Juan and his family. The fear, the not knowing what's going to happen.
You're right. Just because he's free doesn't mean the pain goes away. Being wrongly imprisoned, that leaves a mark.
So, thinking about everything we've talked about, what's the biggest thing that stands out to you?
For me, it's how random it all was.
Yeah.
Juan was just at a baseball game, and they happened to be filming a TV show there. Without that, who knows what would have happened to him?
It's almost like fate stepped in.
Makes you think about how much of our lives is just chance, and how do we deal with it when something unexpected happens, especially something big like this?
And we can't forget about technology. It almost got Juan convicted, but then it also helped to free him. Those cell phone records and the Curb Your Enthusiasm footage were crucial.
Technology, it's a double-edged sword. It can be used for good or bad. We have to be careful how we use it, especially when it comes to evidence and people's privacy.
It's a tricky situation. But one thing's for sure, technology is going to keep changing how the justice system works.
And that means we all need to pay attention, learn about these issues, and make sure technology is used fairly.
So we've talked about Juan's story, about how the system failed him, the ups and downs of the investigation, and how a TV show helped to set him free. But what happens after he's exonerated? Does life ever go back to normal?
Well, that's what we're going to explore next.
So we've talked about how the system failed Juan, the crazy twists and turns, and even how Curb Your Enthusiasm played a part in all this. But what about Juan after he's cleared? Does life just go back to how it was?
Well, it's never that easy. Even though the charges were dropped, what he went through, it leaves a mark.
Like a scar that never really fades, right?
Yeah. Being wrongly imprisoned, that can really mess you up. The fear, being alone, the threat of violence all the time, losing your freedom, those things stay with you.
And his family, too. They went through so much stress, not knowing what was going to happen, and then there's the stigma, people judging them.
It affects everyone around you, not just the person who's wrongly convicted.
We talked about the Netflix documentary Long Shot. It showed Juan's story to a lot of people. Did that make a difference?
Oh, definitely. The documentary was huge. It got people talking about Juan's case and about wrongful convictions in general. It gave him a chance to tell his story, in his own words, and to connect with others who've been through something similar.
So it kind of turned a terrible situation into a way to make things better.
Exactly. By sharing his story, Juan brought attention to the problems in the system that lead to these wrong convictions. And it got people thinking about how to fix those problems.
It shows that even when something awful happens, you can still use it to make a difference, to fight for a better world.
And we have to give credit to the filmmakers, too. They saw the injustice, the human side of it all, and they shared it with the world.
It's a good reminder that the media can do good things, like expose the truth and hold people accountable.
So, as we wrap up our look into Juan Catalan's story, what do you think? What stuck with you the most? What questions do you have?
I think for me, it shows that even though our justice system tries to be fair, it can get things wrong. And sometimes those mistakes have terrible consequences.
It's a reminder that we can't just assume everything is okay. We have to ask questions, be skeptical, and fight for people who have been wrongly accused.
It's easy to just believe what we see on the news without really thinking about it. But Juan's story teaches us to be more critical, to look at things from different angles, and to remember that justice isn't guaranteed.
Every case, every accusation, every conviction, it's about a person. A real person with hopes and dreams, and they can be hurt by the system.
We all have a responsibility to make sure the justice system is fair, that it protects innocent people and holds the guilty accountable.
So take Juan's story with you. Be curious, be informed, and always fight for what's right.
If you want to know more about this, check out Long Shot on Netflix. It's a powerful story, and it shows how strong people can be in the face of injustice.
It'll make you think, and it'll stay with you long after you're done watching it. It'll make you think about the world, about how you can make it a better, fairer place.
That's it for today's deep dive. We've covered a lot, but there's always more to learn, more to discover, and more to question.
Stay curious, stay informed, and keep searching for the truth.